All right, hi, and welcome to another episode of Reading with Lizzie. I'm Lizzie from Dragon Tree Emporium, coming to you from Indianapolis. And today's episode is going to be going over all of the books I read in October. I will go over the prompts that I finished. I actually completed some HRCYED prompts. We will go over my final stats for the Horrorathon and the Hocus Pocus Readathon and TBR Harvest 2.0. So that's the plan. I'm going to try and not make this like an hour-long video because my computer does not like it when I do that. So let's see how quickly I can get this done. For October, I read 23 books. So that is one more book more than I read in September. I read 5,450 pages. I listened to 39.9 hours of audiobook, and my average rating in October was a 4.12. My highest rated reads were I See You, Charlotte by Coralie Taylor, Into the Drowning Deep by Mira Grant, aka Shauna McGuire, and Audition for the Fox, which is by Martin Cahill. Those were my 5-star reads. My 4.75 star reads were The Dead Path by Stephen M. Irwin, Ghost Wall by Sarah Moss. For 5 stars, I also have The Bewitching by Sylvia Moreno Garcia, Blood Over Brighthaven by M.L. Wang, Cemetery Boys by Aiden Thomas. I don't know why my summary didn't include those. And then my 4.75s are, just Ghost Wall by Sarah Moss and The Dead Path by Stephen M. Irwin. 4.5s, The 31st Trick or Treater by Ben Farthing. That is an advent calendar book that takes place the entire month of October. So each day is a different chapter. So very fun, very interesting. And then we have This Wretched Valley by Jenny Kiefer, or Kiefer? 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 And for 4.25s, I did have one of those, and that was Cursed Bunny by Bora Chung, which is a bunch of short stories that are science fiction, magical realism-esque. So the reason it got 4.25 stars is because some of the stories are A+, great work, and some of the stories are not. And then we also had Scary Stories for Young Foxes by Christian McKay Heidecker. That was also 4.25 stars. My 4-star reads were Love Letters to a Serial Killer by Tasha Coriel, My Darling Dreadful Thing by Joanna Von Veen, okay, and then all of my, the rest of them are, kind of grouped together. So we have The Pumpkin King's Bride by Ray Laurie. That one I only gave 3 stars. Love Potions by Michelle Pillow. That was 3.5 stars. Horror Hotel by Victoria Fulton and Faith McLaren. That was 3.75 stars. Cinderella is Dead by Callan Bayron. I always flip the pronunciations of that. And then The Last Girl Standing by Jennifer Dugan, which was 3.25 stars. Welcome to Dead House by R.L. Stine, which was 3.5 stars. Aurora Sky by Nikki Jefford, which was 3 stars. Bells, Tales, and Murder, a cozy English animal mystery by Kathy Penn was 3.75 stars. And Carved from the Heart by McKenna Cross, which was 3 stars. So my calendar, as you can see, I read every single day in October. I do wish Storygraph picked different colors because some of these colors are really, really similar and it's hard to see. But let's see. Let's zoom in a little bit more so that I can read it off to the side. It looks like on what day did I read the most? Ooh, looks like it was the 6th. I read 351 pages and I listened to 660 minutes of. That doesn't feel right. 660 minutes. How can that be? I don't even think the book is that long. Okay. Apparently October 6th, I did a whole bunch. All right, now we're going to get into the HRCYED stuff. So let me just open that folder. All right, I finished subgenres of choice. So I chose the fantasy as the main genre because obviously I did. So for cozy fantasy, I read The Bells, Tales, and Murders. My fantasy horror was But Not Too Bold. My historical fantasy was The Sirens. My erotica fantasy was Jack's Head. Gothic fantasy was The Bewitching. And my romance fantasy, which is different than romantasy, at least I think so. So my fantasy slash romance was The Fascinators. So I finished that in October, and then I also did Spooky Creatures. So for vampires, I read Aurora Sky. I read a whole bunch of them, but that's the one that I assigned for it. For just like shapeshifters, I did Someone You Can Build a Nest In. For magic user, I did love potions, and they're warlocks. For Fae folk, it was 3 Minutes to Midnight, and they're just like basic Fae. They have a whole bunch of other. There's also like vampires and werewolves, etc. But the main character is just like Fae. They don't say anything else. So my assumption is maybe more fairy type, but they just labeled them as Fae, and there wasn't much description otherwise. For spirits, I read Horror Hotel, which had ghosts. For merfolk, I did Into the Drowning Deep by Mira Grant, and there was a big discussion in the book about whether or not they should be called mermaids or not. So they did end up, one of the characters does say that they should be more properly called sirens. So that's what I labeled them as. And then we have for zombie, we have Anima Rising by Christopher Moore. And she wasn't necessarily a like arg brains zombie, but she is undead, and that counts. And then other creatures, I read Cursed Bunny by Bora Chung, and just, I'm gonna say it, there's a toilet monster. It's not, it's not pleasant. It's not great. It's kind of disgusting, but I read it. So there it is. So that's 2 down. The reason this isn't ticked off is because I haven't submitted all of these on the website yet. Because I was doing that one at a time, and then I just kind of stopped. So I will be doing that and actually submitting them, and then I'll get to check it off. But it is complete. Now, for my horror-a-thon, actually, let's start not with horror-a-thon, but let's do Hocus Pocus Readathon, because that one is small. Okay, so for the Hocus Pocus Readathon, I was, you know what, let's see if I can figure this out. Hold on. Virtual camera. Is that gonna do it? Can I? No? Ooh, okay. Okay. Hopefully this is working. Hocus Pocus Readathon. I was obviously Team Undead. So the prompts were read a book with a cat on the cover, Bell's Sales and Murder. This was read a book that takes you out of your comfort zone, which I actually switched. I used my strength here. Strength. You may trade prompt with another team's prompt. And so what I read for this one was, I think it was from the Witches board, and it was just something about magic potions. And, well, love potions. I figured that was perfect. And then we've got a spooky buddy read book, which was Cinderella is Dead. And this was our group read, our group book. So actually not just for Team Undead. I think it was for the entire Hocus Pocus Readathon. We were all supposed to read Cinderella is Dead. And then death as an MC or subject of the book is death or grief. This one I picked out because I initially thought that the main character dies early on. She does not, so that's good. However, she does think about death a lot. She does have depression. She is a teenager with depression. And slight spoiler, there is a death that takes place in the later part of the book. So I wound up keeping it here, even though it wasn't what I thought it was going to be. So it's kind of hit or miss whether or not that one should have actually counted. My free space was the Bewitching, because obviously. And then listen to an audiobook, and that was this Horror Hotel. Spin the wheel, put 10 books on a wheel, and spin. And it came up with The Wretched Valley. I just chose from books in the like available now section of Libby, and it worked. And then this, of course, was just watch the movie Hocus Pocus, which obviously I did. And then put on some of your favorite jams and enjoy. And I did like a little like me day pajama party type thing. So there's Hocus Pocus. And then we're gonna go ahead and open up this. Okay, so this one changed so much. I did so many different books for this. Where is Cemetery Boys? Because I read that one for being a single parent. That's one of the ones that I ended up doing for that prompt. Okay, but it's not here, so. For Neurodivergent, main character, Into the Drowning Deep, multiple of them were. For a paranormal book, I did My Darling Dreadful Thing. I Oh yeah, that's right. Card from the Heart has a hat on it. It's just a book, so it's supposed to be a deceiving cover. Cursed Bunny, very, very deceiving. Cinderella is Dead is a little bit deceiving in just in the fact that, you know, um, I thought it was going just based on like the cover and the title. I thought it was going to be kind of like a undead. I think like a I was expecting like a ghost or a specter or like undead Cinderella, something like that. It was not. It was lots of misogyny and yeah. A book that involves possession. That also would be my darling dreadful thing. But I did read something else for that, I think. Let me see if I can find it. I ended up doubling up on a lot of these. The Bewitching was themes of grief. The Wretched Valley was paranormal. Oh, there's two of them here. The Horror Hotel was also paranormal. Audition for the Fox was. What did I do for this? What? I don't know. Cursed Bunny was my team book. Deceiving cover. Cinderella is Dead is deceiving cover. Into the Drowning Deep was neurodivergent. Oops, two of them. Let's see here. The Last Girl Standing was themes of grief and depression. A Scary Story for Young Foxes was deceiving cover because that was a lot darker than I thought it was going to be. Holy cow. And then I did My Darling Dreadful Thing for, I did that one for Possession. Okay. Yeah. All right. Bring that over there. There we go. And then The Dead Path is takes place in Australia, and the author is also Australian. And then, can't get rid of the Babadook, depression, grief. We also had I See You, Charlotte, like I said just a minute ago. So those all took very different turns from what I thought it was going to be. I ended up reading a whole lot more for this team than I thought I was going to. And we ended up coming in second place, if I remember correctly. So, yay! And then finally, oh, there we go. We've got my TBR Harvest. Let me actually open up the other one as well so that we can look at that. Which I did not do the bingo game. I just couldn't. It was just too much. But I did do the scavenger hunt. And we're gonna zoom in on this. So the ones that are marked as red, I read them. And then if I marked it as hunt, I just found a book from my TBR with that on the cover because I was still reading the first book. So like this was Satan's Affair, I believe. It took me a couple days to read it. So then I didn't read a book about birds. I did find a book with birds on the cover. But then on day 3, I was able to read a book with leaves or a leaf on the cover. That went quickly. So then I read a book with an animal on the cover, etc., etc. And I did it all. Oh, I forgot to mark this because yes, I did read a holiday themed item. That was 31st Trick or Treater. And then the playboard. So this one was a lot. I'm still not completely done with it, but I am getting there. So I still have to read Bake It to the Limit, A Dance with the Devil, Venomous, Briardark, The Forgotten Child, A Match Made in Spell, and Unkindness of Ghost. And then this is going to be the third book in the Venomous series, I think. Either that or it's going to be the second book of I See You, Charlotte. So that's what I have left. I haven't done any spinning yet because I can't find my normal, like, just bats of wool. I have them someplace. I can't find them. So I still have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 more books to read. And then I will officially be done with TBR Harvest Pumpkin Patch. However, we did not have to play multiple games. So, technically, because I finished TBR Harvest Scavenger Hunt, I am done. This is just extra. And that's fine. I am still going to finish it. Maybe not until December. I'm not sure. Alright, now I gotta figure out how to stop this. Oh, there we go. Ah, I figured it out. Okay. Hi, it's Editing Lizzie. What is up with my camera? Why so low? Okay, better. I just realized that I squished October and November into one video. So I have cut November's out. So this is my closing, my outro. Toodaloo. In the comments, what was your favorite book that you read in October? And see you next time.